All right, let's just dive right into this. I want you to picture a scene. You're with someone and they're just incredible. The connection is there, the laughs are real, and you feel this huge surge of love. The words, 3 little words, just 8 letters, they're right there on the tip of your tongue. And then, poof, a wall just slams up. You get a tightness in your chest, a lump in your throat, and your brain just short circuits. The moment passes, the words go unsaid. Again. Or, hey, maybe you're on the other side of this. Your partner shows you they love you in a million different ways. They bring you soup, they listen, they're your rock. But the silence around those 3 specific words is just deafening. It leaves you confused and honestly a little hurt. If any of that feels familiar, then this explainer is definitely for you.
And that's the big question, isn't it? How can something so simple, something that's supposed to be so beautiful, feel like it carries the weight of the entire world? It's so easy to jump to conclusions, right? To just label it commitment issues, or think, well, they must not really love me. But, those are the simple answers, and they're almost never the true ones. So today, we're going to push past all those surface-level guesses and get to the real, scientific reasons. We're going to explore the deep psychology and the powerful neuroscience that can make saying I love you feel less like a tender moment and more like you're standing on the edge of a cliff about to jump.
So here's our game plan. First, we're going to look at the silent disconnect to really get what's happening on the inside. Then we'll go back in time to the childhood blueprint and see how our first relationships literally shape our voice as adults. After that, we'll dive into the amazing science with the brain's alarm bell. And then, and this is the most important part, we'll lay out a clear, practical roadmap to speaking with real strategies you can actually use.
Okay, so let's start by knocking down the biggest myth of all. The idea we all get from movies and songs is that if you can't say I love you, you must not feel it. But for almost everyone struggling with this, the truth is the complete opposite. The issue isn't a lack of love, it's an overwhelming and often unconscious feeling of danger. So at its very core, this isn't about love, it's about safety.
This right here, this illustrates the huge gap, the chasm at the heart of the problem. Internally, a person might be feeling this incredible symphony of love. It's deep, it's powerful, it's totally real. They feel it in their soul. But on the outside, all their partner gets is silence, a void. It really is like a brick wall just went up out of nowhere. And this disconnect is where all the pain comes from. The person who feels the love but can't say it feels misunderstood and ashamed. And the person who desperately wants to hear it feels unseen and unloved. They're standing right next to each other, both starving for a connection that's actually already there. It's just trapped behind that wall.
So this is the key thing to get. It is not an absence of emotion, but the presence of a deep, almost primal fear. We're taught that love is this grand declaration, right? So when someone can't do that, we tend to label them as cold or emotionally unavailable, and that just piles a whole lot of shame on top of what is already a really difficult internal battle. We have to reframe this. For them, the act of speaking their affection feels fundamentally, physically unsafe. Their entire nervous system is screaming danger. It's a survival response, not a romantic failure.
Okay, so if we want to understand where this deep-seated fear comes from, we have to go back, way back, to the very beginning, where our emotional software was first written. You see, our ability to give and receive love, especially with words, isn't something we're just born with. It's a skill that's molded in our earliest years. Our childhood relationships create the literal blueprint for how we connect as adults.
And that brings us to a huge concept in modern psychology, attachment theory. Think of it like this. When we're babies, we are completely helpless. Our very first relationships, usually with our parents, become a training ground for our entire nervous system. This is where we learn the basic rules of the game. Is the world a safe place? Can I count on other people? And, most importantly, if I show my feelings and needs, will people come closer or will that push them away? This early programming doesn't just go away. It becomes a lifelong template for all our future relationships.
And this shows the 2 main paths this can go down. On one hand, if your caregivers were generally warm and responsive, they comforted you when you were upset and shared in your joy, you likely developed what's called a secure attachment. Your nervous system learned a core lesson. Vulnerability is safe. Showing how I feel brings people closer. For you, saying I love you probably feels pretty natural. But if your caregivers were distant or maybe just overwhelmed and couldn't really meet your emotional needs, your brain learned a very different and much more painful lesson. You likely developed an avoidant attachment style. Your system learned that showing your emotions is useless or even worse, dangerous. It leads to getting rejected or ignored, so it's just safer to rely on yourself. And for someone with that wiring, saying I love you is the ultimate act of vulnerability. It feels like you're handing someone a weapon and just hoping they don't use it.
Now let's get into the hard science of it all. We've talked about the psychology, but what is physically happening inside your brain and your body in that split second when you want to say the words, but you just can't? Why does it feel physically impossible? This isn't just in your head. It's not you failing to make a choice. It's a powerful, involuntary biological response, a literal alarm bell going off in your brain.
This whole response has a name. It's called an amygdala hijack. See, deep in your brain, you have these two little almond-shaped things called the amygdala. Think of them as your brain's smoke detector. Now, for someone whose childhood taught them that expressing emotion is dangerous, the act of being vulnerable gets filed in the brain not as a social risk, but as a life or death threat like seeing a lion. So the moment you even think about saying, "I love you," the amygdala pulls the fire alarm. It floods your body with stress hormones like cortisol and adrenaline. Your heart pounds, your breath gets shallow, your throat literally tightens up, and the part of your brain that handles logic and language just gets shut down. You physically cannot speak because your body has gone into survival mode. Fight, flight, or in this case, freeze.
But, what if it's not actually about fear? There's another really important piece of the puzzle here called alexithymia. Now, this isn't a disorder, it's a personality trait, and it basically means a person has a really hard time figuring out what their own emotions are and then putting words to them. The best way to think about it is like being emotionally colorblind. You know you're feeling something, but you can't really tell the difference between the shades. Someone with alexithymia can feel the physical side of love, the warmth, the racing heart, but their brain just struggles to translate those physical signals into emotional words. So the phrase "I love you" can feel really weird and fake because they don't have a clear internal map connecting what their body feels to that abstract idea of love.
So let's put a face to these ideas. First up, let's meet the action man. This is the person who would drive all night to help their partner. They fix things, they build things, they remember all the little details. Their love is shown through constant acts of service. But when their partner says the words, they clam up or change the subject. This is a classic example of an avoidant attachment style. Their childhood taught them that actions are what you can trust and words are empty or even dangerous. He is showering his love every single day, just not with his voice.
Now, let's look at the perfectionist. She feels love so deeply, but she's completely paralyzed by the idea of saying it first. Her mind just runs in this constant loop of what ifs. What if I say it at the wrong time? What if I feel it more than they do? What if they don't say it back? This is the amygdala hijack playing out in real time. For her, because of things that happened in her past, the thought of rejection isn't just awkward, it feels catastrophic. It would confirm this deep, dark fear that she's fundamentally unlovable. So the safety of silence, even though it hurts, feels so much less risky than that potential devastation.
And finally, there's the confused soul. When his partner asks if he loves her, he honestly doesn't know what to say. He feels this strong, positive thing, this deep sense of comfort when he's with her. But that word love, it feels too big, too abstract, like a foreign language he never learned. This is a perfect example of alexithymia. His brain just doesn't have the emotional vocabulary to put a precise label on what's going on inside. He's not trying to be difficult, he's just genuinely overwhelmed by the pressure to define something that for him feels undefinable. Okay, we have dug into the why, the childhood history, and the brain science behind the silence. Now for the part you've probably been waiting for, the how. If you're the person who's stuck in this silence, how do you find your voice? The most important thing to know is that you can't just force it. That's like trying to reason with a smoke detector while the alarm is blaring. You have to gently and patiently rewire your nervous system. So here is a 5-step, science-backed plan to teach your brain that vulnerability can actually be safe.
Okay, let's break it down. Step 1, validate your love language. Seriously, before you even think about words, you have to kill the shame. Your love is real. So grab a piece of paper and write down 10 things you've done this month that show love without saying a word. You have to acknowledge that your love is already being expressed. That's your foundation. Step 2, bridge feeling and action. This is for anyone who relates to that alexithymia idea. Just practice noticing the physical feelings in your body when you're with your partner, a warmth in your chest, your shoulders relaxing. Then, just in your own head, connect that feeling to a word. Start small, like safe, or happy, or care. You're literally building the bridge between your body and your words. Step 3, use exposure therapy training wheels. Saying I love you out of nowhere is like trying to run a marathon without ever jogging. It's too big of a leap. So you start smaller. Use low-stakes phrases to teach your brain that this isn't a disaster. Try things like, I really appreciate you, or my life is so much better with you in it. These are your training wheels. Step 4, communicate the blockage. This one is huge. Talk about why it's hard. In a calm moment, just explain to your partner, hey, my struggle with these words isn't about you or how I feel about you. It's about my own history. This turns it from a you versus me problem into an us versus the problem team effort. And finally, step 5, redefine I love you. Lower the stakes. The phrase doesn't have to be this giant, permanent contract. It can just mean, in this moment, right now, my heart feels full because of you. Redefining it for yourself takes so much pressure off.
So really, the most important thing to take away from all of this is empathy. I love you are powerful words. They're beautiful, but they aren't the only definition of love. They're not even the ultimate definition. Love is a verb. It's an action. It's in the consistency, the support, the quiet little things, the shared moments. If you're the one who can't say it, please know you are not broken. Your brain is just trying to protect you using an old, outdated map. And if you're the one waiting to hear the words, try, just for a moment, to listen with your eyes. Look for the love that's already there, being expressed in 1,000 other ways.
And that really leaves us with one last question to think about. In the big picture of a relationship, what truly speaks the loudest? Is it the grand declaration, or is it the daily demonstration? You know, the answer is probably different for everyone, but just understanding both sides of that coin is the first real step toward bridging that silent disconnect. Thanks for going through this with me. I would love to know what you think in the comments. What speaks louder to you, the words or the actions? Let's talk about it.